They didn't ask who killed him, they asked who was easiest to blame. In a town built on lies, one woman was framed for murder until she discovered the killer wasn't hiding in the dark. He was hiding behind a badge. I didn't hear the first gunshot clearly. That's the lie my mind tells itself when it wants to survive. The truth is uglier. I heard it, understood it, and still stood there pretending it was something else. A door slammed, a tire backfiring, anything except what it was. The second shot didn't give me that luxury. It ripped through the quiet of Briar Hollow like it wanted witnesses. My coffee mug slipped from my hand, shattered against the kitchen floor, brown liquid crawling across the tile like it was trying to escape the room. I didn't move right away. Fear has a strange way of pressing pause, of forcing you to absorb the moment whether you want to or not. Briar Hollow was trained silence. 9,000 people who believed that if you kept your head down long enough, trouble would pass you by. The kind of town where sound traveled too far and memories traveled even farther. I already knew where the shots had come from. Ethan Cross. I pulled on my jacket, fingers shaking, and stepped outside before my thoughts could catch up. The night air tasted metallic, sharp, wrong. Halfway down Maple Road, red and blue lights bled through the trees, staining the dark with urgency. Police cars, an ambulance, neighbors gathering in clusters, pretending concern while feeding on it. No one cried yet. It was too soon for grief. This was curiosity. Ethan Cross was dead. 2 bullets in his study, no forced entry, no weapon. The kind of death that made people uncomfortable because it suggested permission. Someone had been allowed inside. By morning, the town had already started protecting itself. Ethan was a pillar here, developer, school board member, donor. He paid for uniforms, fireworks, renovations. Men like him built towns and then convinced everyone they owned them. His smile was everywhere. Newspaper clippings, plaques, framed photos in businesses he'd helped save. I cleaned his house twice a week, Tuesdays and Fridays. I knew which floorboard creaked near the stairs, how the back door lock jammed unless you lifted it just right. How he never dusted the picture of his late wife because touching it reminded him she was gone. My fingerprints lived in that house like ghosts. Detective Mark Havorson knocked on my door just after noon. He had the look of a man who'd learned to stop expecting clean truths. He asked routine questions until they stopped being routine. When he told me my fingerprints were found in the study, I didn't react. I told him the truth. I cleaned it. He nodded, but something shifted. Possibility entered the room. By the third day, Briar Hollow had decided who I was. A single woman in her late 30s, not born here, worked in people's homes. I'd argued with Ethan 2 weeks earlier. Someone remembered that. No one remembered what he'd said to me. How he leaned close and reminded me I was replaceable. How men like him always thought power was permanent. The police searched my apartment. Took my phone, my laptop, my journals. They found pages filled with anger, with sentences written at 2 in the morning when rage had nowhere else to go. I hate him. He ruins people and sleeps fine. One day, someone will make him pay. Context is fragile. Suspicion is not. They called me a person of interest, the town exhaled. Relief is powerful when it has a target. That's when I understood something terrifyingly clear. If I didn't find the truth, no one else would. Briar Hollow didn't want justice. It wanted comfort. I went back to Ethan's house just before sunset, careful to stay. Outside, behind the garage, the dirt was torn with fresh tire tracks. Not Ethan's. Too wide. Too heavy. A truck. They led toward the old water treatment facility, abandoned years ago. Except there were lights on. The building smelled like dust, paper, and grief that had learned how to sit quietly. Margaret Hensley waited downstairs. Hands folded like this was a meeting she'd scheduled. The town librarian, the woman everyone trusted because she spoke softly and never demanded attention. Her son had died 5 years earlier on one of Ethan's construction sites. An accident, they said. Case closed. She didn't deny anything. She told me how safety reports were altered, how records could be reshaped when you controlled history, how easy it was to wait when grief hardened into patience. She told me she used my schedule because it was public, my fingerprints because they were already there, my anger because angry women are always believable villains. I recorded her confession. I went to Detective Havorson. For the first time, he listened. Margaret Hensley was arrested quietly. The town rewrote the story. Ethan Cross became complicated, a tragedy with flaws. I thought it was over. I was wrong. 3 weeks later, someone tried to kill me. A truck followed me too closely on Route 9. Headlights flaring, horn blaring. It swerved just enough to send my car spinning. I survived because I overcorrected and slammed into a ditch instead of oncoming traffic. The police called it an accident. I didn't. Margaret Hensley had never driven that truck. The truth came slowly, painfully. Ethan Cross hadn't just ruined one family. He'd ruined many, and Margaret hadn't acted alone. The real killer was someone no one noticed. Someone who stood beside grief and learned from it. Someone who let Margaret take the fall because she was already broken. Detective Havorson. Ethan had covered up evidence years ago. Evidence that would have ended Havorson's career. Margaret had uncovered it. Havorson had used her pain, guided her rage, handed her the tools. Then he cleaned up. Almost perfectly, almost, I turned everything over to internal affairs. This time, there was nowhere to bury it. Havorson was arrested in his own driveway. Briar Hollow fell silent. Again, Margaret hadn't been the monster. She'd been the distraction. And I left town. Some places don't deserve to keep the people they almost destroy. Briar Hollow still looks peaceful if you drive through it fast enough. But I know better. I know how neatly evil can dress itself, how quietly it can wait, how desperately towns cling to lies that let them sleep. Please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.